Oh God! Fresh on the autopsy bench, we have a pair of a pair of RD56s. It doesn't really matter how close you look at them. These are in a pretty dreadful state. We're going to do a quick video of them. I really don't know what we're letting ourselves in for here, but I do know that this one here has a teensy-weensy problem with the tail bearing. Basically, you can move that in and out and up and down. It's sort of had it. Yeah, nothing wrong with that. But I think what it will do is actually probably give a very good indication of RD56 issues. These are one of our favourite diffs. We actually make parts to keep these going because a lot of the parts are no longer available. But let's have them apart one by one and a quick look at the state of both of them. Can't wait. Unfortunately, this video only does pictures and sound. It doesn't do smell. And I can tell you they don't smell very good at all. Back later. We'll start with the one with the dodgy pinion bearing. I don't know if you'll see it here, but this adjuster ring here that's held in with this locking clamp is actually quite severely bent. Not only that, but as you can see, these are loose. This looseness is actually quite standard on Land Rover diffs. The problem is that looseness is allowing the adjuster ring inside there. Hang on, I've got one. So underneath there you've got like an adjuster ring, and that is locked into it. Now if this moves, this allows this to move, and if that moves, it adjusts the backlash, which is key to keeping the crown wheel and pinion in the correct mesh position. We don't actually use Land Rover ones. We have our own made of a stronger steel, made a little bit thicker, and when they go in there, they're a perfect tight fit. So that isn't going to help, but it's a minor issue. Whilst we're just looking at these two RD56s, this one here, this is a very late RD56. This has a wonderful spring clip here that holds this ring with the air seals in place, whereas this one over here is an earlier one. Actually, in many ways this is better. This has three small Allen bolts which hold the adjuster ring into a threaded plate that goes on the reverse of adjuster ring. This is actually in many ways better than this, which is obviously cheaper. And my colleague has just entered the room. Have you hurt yourself? Good. Excellent. Right, so on with the video whilst he goes and calls an ambulance. And similarly, from a strength point of view, although this is a loose wobbly fit and allows movement, it is actually a fairly strong bit of steel which has a nice big lug on the inside locking into the adjuster ring. But over here, this is a much later Land Rover diff. This is 300 TDI onwards. So instead of having a nice big thick lumpy metal bit going in, you've got a hollow 3mm cotter pin. What happens with these is the pressures sometimes within the diff will shear this pin off, and then the adjuster ring here can literally unwind itself and the diff can blow up. We will not use these types of casings for any of our peg casings. On peg casings we always use these. They're stronger with the ribs across here. On the later casings like this one, if you do peg them, they're very prone to crack right on that line across there, and it's because this is just flat. Think of a flat bit of steel that you twist in your hands. Now try and twist it with whopping great ridges across there. These add an awful lot of strength. It's basically get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of that. Makes it a lot cheaper. It doesn't make it any better. In fact, it makes it inferior. Anyway, enough of that. Let's take it apart. Well, we got the centre out and it really isn't looking any better. This pegged unit is actually jammed on there. I can't actually get that off, so we're going to have to dig deep and do that. The head bearing has basically completely collapsed, and it looks as though it's had a fatality. And it looks like it's had a fatality on the end with a half shaft breaking. So it's not looking very promising so far, and this is diff number 1. And this is where people need to stop when things go bang, because what's actually happened is the internal tail bearing has spun and wrecked where it sits in here, so the surface behind here is completely scored up, so we can't fit a new bearing. So this peg casing has had it, unfortunately. Nothing we can do with it. That's a bit of bad news for starters. Never quite actually seen anything like this. The gear isn't as thick as it should be there. The pinion, I think, isn't going to go again. There's the other part of the head tail bearing, which has spun and welded itself on. That I don't know what that is. It could be the shimmer. It could, yeah. I think this is.
That's the remains of the bearing.
Yeah, I think that's toasted. But basically, we've lost a big chunk of tooth there. Might clean that up and put it in the display cabinet as the wall of fame or shame. My God, not looking good. Welcome back to the autopsy bench. Now, these have a habit. This is the centre, and the carrier bearing here has a habit of sometimes becoming loose and coming off like that. Unfortunately, this one isn't just so much loose as yeah. There's about 1 millimetre of wear. What's happened here is it's spun on the actual bearing internal race here, and it's actually lays down this here. As you can see, it's a very rough and unhappy section. It's cracked the top of this, and so that bit's scrap. Although we do make a replacement for that, but it's whether or not anything internally in here is actually salvageable. Dig deeper, Barker. Well, it's apart and it's not good. We have an extremely broken cage. We also have a diff that has 2 of these. There's basically in here there's a central boss like that, which has a long pin running through it, and then 2 short pins like that. So this is the short pin, and yeah, that's part of the long pin. So this is toast, because also this gear here has managed to bond itself completely onto this plate, and I can't get it off. I'm going to put this in the press and press it out just to show you the damage, but basically this has spun, welded and locked itself onto this here, probably when the shaft has gone, and we'll see what that's like. But that is a pile of scrap, the whole lot. The casing, the centre, the crown wheel, the pinion, everything. There is. It's just going to fill my scrap bin, I think, unfortunately. One down, one to go. Happy days, eh? Some considerable time later, it's out. You can see where it's spun here and damaged all of the back side of the gear set. So, yeah, completely total. Next. Well, normally I clean off the bench so it's immaculate when I finish stripping a diff, but there's not a lot of point. So we're now going to go in deep on number 2. Hold your breath. Well, it's sort of apart, and this has had it as well. Crown wheel is in a pretty horrendous state. It's going to be really noisy. This one here is all chewed up again on the inside. The gears are basically just solid. That's been chewed into on the insides and out damaged on the out. This, I can't even get the cage out. The little lugs that should be here have sheared off and been chewed up, and it's completely jammed in. And all the gears here are in a pretty dire state as well. This is being run on a competition vehicle with 35-inch tyres. It's going to last seconds. Basically, I don't even think I can build one centre out of 2, because everything is just chewed to bits. And the casing itself on the inside, I haven't taken the pinion out yet, but it's not exactly looking promising. The peg pad has worn away massively. I think it's come apart at some point and just got chomped up. Basically a day stripping 2 diffs and taking up the whole morning, and pretty much all of it is skip ready. So I need to make a call to the customer, but this is what happens when you don't stop, when your diff needs a bit of love. And now it's RIP, 2 RD56s, 1 peg casing. That peg casing may well survive if we clean it up. Oh dear. Happy days. Small update from the bench of woe. We've managed to get the tail bearing out of the second casing. In here it is slightly damaged. As I go round, you'll see a groove down this area. There's quite a big chunky groove where it's got damaged. There it is. There's the extra groove. but we reckon we can tidy this up. If this was an ordinary casing, we'd throw it in the scrap, but because it's a peg casing, it has obviously a huge replacement value, so we think we can probably save this with a bit of love machining and definitely a good clean-up. It needs a very good clean-up, but that might just go again. We also have managed to get the cage out and the springs. Slight problem with the springs, and I'm not even sure where the cage landed, but that came out.
It's behind you.
It's behind me? Oh yeah.
It's a pantomime.
It's a pantomime cage. The cage had welded itself in. I've managed to get that out, but the centre's had it, so not a lot we can do. But we'll make that go again with a bit of luck.